You sure? No, we're good.
Hi, okay.
Hi, everybody. We were talking to ourselves. My bad. I have the wonderful Annabelle here of Fortune Cookies Tarot LLC. I was just absolutely tickled when she agreed to come on. I've admired her from afar. She's my Jersey girl. We're in the same time zone. All these things, we get the same weather. All these things have kind of bonded us.
Yeah. Well, Jersey is a state of mind. You know that.
Yes, it is. And with everybody else, I kind of have to think, okay, they're an hour behind. They're 4 hours ahead, 6 hours ahead. But Annabelle, I just know if I message her, she's on my time. And also in my state of mind with being in Jersey together. Yeah. So you have a wonderful channel called Fortune Cookies Tarot LLC. Tell us a little bit about when you started that.
Oh, so well, that is a really interesting story. So I have worked as a psychic since I was 17, 18. Like I've done this for a long time. That's another story. But during the pandemic, one of my husband's good friends, a gal named Shelly, she went through like this whole series of like bad things that happened. In what should have been like the happiest period of her life. So she was pregnant with her second child. She was working. She's an amazing hairdresser, an amazing artist. And pandemic happened. She had the baby. He got sick. He is fine now. He is the most robust little tank of a kid. He's amazing. But right after she had him, I think he was 3 weeks old. She was back in the hospital for 6 weeks with him. Likely had COVID or some ancillary virus, but we were really worried she was going to lose him. And when that cleared, she, and mind you, everyone's furloughed. When that cleared, she got into a car accident. She injured her arm. She was unable to do hair. Then the salon shut down entirely. They went bankrupt. And she found out she got a bill for the delivery, for her son being in the hospital, and for the car accident, all at the same time to the tune of 6 figures. And I said to Greg, I go, oh, like poor Shelly. I go, I'm going to give her a call and see if she wants a reading. And I get on the phone with her. And she was Greg's friend first. And, I said, I know everything that's going on. I want to give you a reading. And she goes, oh, you do readings? And I go, yeah. And she goes, I do readings. I go, well, let's put an LLC together and put you back to work. Let's go do this. And shockingly, I guess because everybody was at home sitting around watching the Tiger King and day drinking, we got a huge response just from setting up on Facebook. And, I was like, this is kind of overwhelming how many people are coming to us for readings and for parties. And, everyone had never gotten readings before. It was very, very strange. And I was like, well, what is up with this? And I guess it was just something different to do during the pandemic. Shelly has subsequently recovered. Obviously, her son has recovered. And she's gone back to work in another artistic capacity. But she's like part of my LLC. She, can come to work whenever she wants. Her kids are really little, so I think she'll come back a little bit in a year or so. I think she'll be at work, but there's always a place for her. So while I was building the LLC, and I found people that wanted to be taught, and I had coached people before. So I said, all right, well, I'll start a school. So I have a school for psychics. Then one of my friends was like, hey, you should start a YouTube channel like me, my girlfriend, Alicia Wicker. And I was like, really? Do you think so? And she was like, absolutely. She was like, you'll love it and you're going to be good at it.
Yes.
And that's like the third time somebody said that to me in my life. You'll love it and you're going to be good at it. And so I started the channel, and, it hasn't been as wildly successful as the LLC in my private readings, but I am establishing this really cool community. I have this really amazing community of people that I'm building. It is a place where I can kind of extend my influence, my reach. And like, to be sure, like, for anyone who's watching that's like, oh, like psychics, like, oh, it's like doom and gloom. my main goal is to make everybody feel better after they have a reading, after they
Right.
watch one of my episodes.
Right.
And I really do try with any of the subjects of my pop culture or celebrity readings. I really do try to find what I call the yellow brick road out of the situation. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I do for my private clients. That's what I try and do for celebrities. I mean, some are, you can't help some of these celebrities, but, I do try and leave everybody with this good sense. And I think, the lives, I do lives on Fridays, but now I'm moving to a Tuesday live as well. And I think everybody kind of leaves, a little bit enthusiastic. Tuesday's more, about plugging in and just kind of reconnecting for the week and kind of getting our gears going. Whereas Friday is like kind of the warm up for the weekend's tarot happy hour. We're having some fun with it. But it's been amazing. I've had support from amazing other content creators. I've had, wild and wacky comments, as I'm sure you have, Cindy.
Yes.
Sometimes you deal with adversarial people, but
yes.
It's no different from, corporate. And I come from a corporate background in banking and insurance, and worked at a brokerage, for 10 years after I had my kids. And it's no different from that. You've got people that want to hamstring you. You've got people that want to support you. You've got people that want to latch on. They want to hitch a cart to your star. And it's, you just have to stay with the higher level people and make sure that you surround yourself with people that are going to be supportive. Like you, Cindy, you've always been very, very supportive and very nice to me.
Thank you.
I think it's important to do that. We all make mistakes or missteps or say the wrong thing to somebody, oh, I liked you better as a blonde, you know what I'm saying? But I think it's so important in any aspect, like here digitally, out in the real world, wherever you may be. I think it's really important to be as helpful and supportive as possible. There's no point in, just flaming the room.
Right.
I want to go to bed every night, and close my eyes and go, I did the best I could with what I had.
Right.
So,
and I think you are accomplishing your goal. I love being in your channel. It is upbeat and positive, and you have such a way about even handling difficult subjects that I really appreciate. Let's get to these questions, girl. So I'm going to ask you, when you were a little girl, who did you think you would become?
So I definitely thought I was going to be a writer and or an editor, or I would have been happy being an editor. My grandfather had a second vocation as a playwright, and he directed plays. He was wonderful. He went to Temple University. Really a dynamic and very, very interesting person, but a very quiet soul. And I was like peas and carrots with him. I just was annoying to the nth degree. But he had me rewriting scenes for plays when I was quite young. And I wrote my first play when I was 10. I do not have it anymore, so don't ask me what the content was. But I geared my academic career. My intention was undergrad, English major, history minor. I was going to get my master's and my PhD, and that was going to be in literature. My intention was to teach university as a PhD. That would have given me the freedom to write. It would have given me, part of the summers off, I never would have had to leave college. It was going to be great. But I did have a head injury. When I was technically done with my degree, my undergrad, and I was taking some master's classes. So I was like in this weird period. I did my undergrad in 3 years. So I was in like this weird designation, and I had this head injury, and I wiped out Latin, Old Slavonic. I did have an ability to converse somewhat in German, and I lost a lot of that. I lost a lot of French, which I never liked. I think French is English with a funny accent. I never liked French. Thank God I retained my Russian, you know, because that was like the hardest language to learn. But I really thought that I was going to be a writer. Now, that being said, I've written 7 novels. I just haven't published any of them.
Wow.
I am a writer every day, but I am going to say like ChatGPT does it a lot faster than I do. So I can like convey what I'm going to say or what I want to say, and they'll package, ChatGPT will package it for me. So I'm a big fan of AI, and I do think that it's a little disruptive for the writer community.
Yes.
But I really did think that I was going to be a writer or an editor.
And you told me you could read before the age of 5.
I cannot recall a time that I could not read.
Wow.
My sister is 2 years older than me, and my next oldest sister is 8 years older, and my brother is 6 years older than my next oldest sister. So I've always been able to read. I always have a book on me. Like I have a book in my car in case my car breaks down. I at any given time I'm reading several books at once, and like one could be history, one could be educational, one could be on building a website, which I just had to do. But I'm typically, you know, if you ever look at my Goodreads, like it says you know, like I've only finished like 3 books this year, but I'm actually reading like 10. But yeah, and my mother said that too, because I've asked her about that, and I was reading at about 3. I was reading books by myself, and I don't know if you remember these. Remember the little 45 record player that we had?
Yes.
And you would get the golden books, and it would go, ding, now turn the page.
I didn't have that.
Yeah, I think that's why I've read so young.
Yes.
Because I was just reading along with it. So
that's so cute. little 3-year-old Annabelle reading. My goodness. Now, with all that being said, did your life turn out the way you expected, or completely differently, or a little bit of both?
So I live in my hometown now, and I never thought that I was going to live back here. Never in a million years. You know, we had moved into the next county, and my mother hates this town. I hate to say that. I mean, she was a, you know, like for everyone who doesn't know me, I had a biological father that, you know, dissipated from my life. And I got a second dad who is amazing. So the guy that I call my dad is my actual stepfather.
Okay.
He's an amazing dude. Really, again, really dynamic, a drummer like my son. And when we were here, we were just with my mom, and we were very, very poor, like painfully poor. And my mom, I think, has some really negative feelings about being back here. You know, fortunately, where we live and how we live is very different from that, because she automatically goes into anxiety zone, like, oh, like, you know, it's going to be terrible. But the town is very different now. We have a lot more infusion from New York now. Like everybody from New York is down here because this is old farm country. So, you know, there's a lot of space. The properties are a little bit bigger. So it's, you know, it's a nice place to live. It's not the same town that Greg and I grew up in. You know, have we outgrown? I think we may have. So I don't know if there's another change that's coming up. There may be, like, who knows? So, you know, did my life turn out the way I did not think that I was going to have kids? That's another thing.
Right.
I actually didn't want to have kids.
Okay.
Until I had them. I was like, oh, this is really fun. I honestly, being the youngest of 4, I really never, I didn't play with baby dolls or anything like that. I just basically, you know, played with our pets. I was the pet rescuer when I was little. Like I would show up with like a wounded dove, or like every feral cat in the neighborhood was my friend. You know, when I lived here in town, there was a creek in back of our house, and like here I was, like 7 years old, like toddling back into the woods, which, mind you, is a private hunting game ground. So like I
Okay.
was going back there where like
Oh,
hunters were like, you know, looking for deer. But there was a little creek, and I would climb up into this tree, and I would just sit there and I would just wait. And people, because we lived in the woods, people would drop off their dogs there. And so we had this, you know, semi-feral pack of dogs that were like all shapes and sizes. Like we had German Shepherds, we had little lab mixes, and every now and then like a Cocker Spaniel would show up and he'd still be like kind of groomed nicely. But I would go back there and I'd just like hang out in the tree and wait for them
oh,
to show up. And like they
of
were my buddies,
course.
like they were my friends. So
Uh-huh.
and they'd have puppies and like it was so cute. Like I would just hang out. And so I really loved animals so much more. And I was like, oh, animals are great. Like, you know, they're easy. You just pack them in the car and you just go, and you don't have a car seat, formula, and all this hoopla. And you know, when I did get pregnant with my daughter, and that was a
Hmm.
surprise. And I raised her on my own. I initially was like, "Oh crap, what am I going to do?" Like, I have my own business. I'm, you know, like
Hmm.
I have a very full plate, and I just was like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to strap this baby to my back and keep doing what I'm doing.
Wow.
And I did. And like I was training dogs at the time. I had another business. I was training companion pets, security dogs. I had a commercial kennel. I had a farm. And so my mom came over one day, and I had Ella I had a papoose for my back, and I just like, strapped her in, and I was training my buddy's pit bull. And my mother was like running out of her car, like, "What are you doing?" I go, "Mom, like, you know, this is the life she's going to be living, you know, like she's
Right.
going to be surrounded by dogs." So, you know, I just didn't. I always thought my life was going to be full of dogs and cats and, you know, goats and llamas, and I didn't think that I was going to have a bunch of kids. After I had her,
Hmm.
I was like, if I could go back in time, I would start having kids the minute I turned 20. Like I
Yes.
had 10. I would have had 10.
Yeah.
I think that they are so much fun. And you know, maybe I'm a little biased. Like my kids are both really, really bright and really funny.
Hmm.
And they're like me in different ways. Angus is more like me. His personality is more like me. Ella is quieter, but she's very thoughtful and very academic, which like you know that appeals to me. But that part of it, I never thought I was going to be back here, and I never thought that I was going to have 2 kids. Like just
Yeah.
didn't think that was what I was doing.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Um, one decision in your life or something that changed the entire course of your life. Can you
So
talk about that?
yeah, that was definitely the head injury I had. It was either 95 or 96. And the reason why I don't remember what year it was is because I you know, I was at a concert, hit my head, and I was knocked out for that long. And I stood up, and my shoulder was broken. My collarbone and my scapula were broken, and my shoulder was dislocated. So I had some friends of mine. One was a veterinarian, one was a dentist, and they said, "Oh, that arm doesn't look good." And I looked at it and I popped it back into place, and I go, "Oh, it's fine." And I guess the adrenaline was going, and
Yeah.
I was at the Stone Pony, by the way, and I just went home. I just went home and went to bed. And the next day, I went over. I had an orthopedist. I went over and I was like, "Can you take a look at this?" And he was like, "This is a mess." And I was like, "Yeah, it's pretty bad." So no one ever asked me if I was knocked out. No one ever asked me if I hit my head, nothing like that. And I was having these fainting episodes. And I just like I would feel a little weird, and I lived by myself, and I, you know, would like pass out, and then I'd wake up, and I was real skinny. So I was like, oh, you know, it's I'm just having these fainting episodes. I'm probably anemic. I've been anemic like 5 times in my life. I actually was having grand mal seizures. And because I was by
Oh.
myself, nobody knew. And I
Oh
would
my
wake up
gosh.
sometimes sometimes I would feel great, and sometimes I would feel crappy. And I did not know that I had this massive brain bleed, brain injury that should have been treated in like the most dramatic way
Oh.
until I married my ex-husband, moved out to California, bought a house, and had a drop seizure in front of him.
Oh no.
And when I came out of it, he was like, what the hell was that? And I go, I just fainted. It's no big deal. He was like, you full on fished out on the floor. Like, we're going to the emergency room. And I was like,
Right.
so I, that was life changing. I mean, with the broken shoulder and all of that, I did my last term from home, and I had friends that were like bringing me I mean, it was the 90s. So I was getting recordings of my lectures. I was doing my papers with one hand. I was doing everything with one hand. I was just laying on the couch. It was wild times. And we'll talk about that a little bit later about like me pushing through, adversity. But, at that point, my mom was like, you're just a mess getting hurt at concerts. Like, we're not paying for graduate school. You're not going. And so I had to like kind of redirect my life. We'll talk about like what happened then. But I that I wound up in California. I moved out to California. I saw a whole bunch of cool stuff that I never thought I was going to see. Drove back and forth across the country numerous times with friends. I think I've done it 7 times, but I'm not sure. It's like the most fun ever. I wouldn't do it now, but the not finishing my master's and not getting my PhD, like those are 2 things that really bother me.
Right.
I should have gotten my PhD, and I there is a PhD that I can get in metaphysics and parapsychology. It's an online course. It's it's kind of a vanity thing. And I think Greg and I are both going to take the class. Greg, you are ordained minister. So
Yes.
for vanity purposes, we want to be announced as the Reverend Dr. Miller and Dr. Miller. So we'll be working on that maybe for 2028.
I have no doubt.
Yeah. It's like it'll be great for my channel, like Dr. Miller. But that changed the course of my life, and I never would have trained dogs had I not had a dog that exhibited seizure detection ability. I worked with a trainer out in California to kind of fine tune that. And then when I came back east, trying to get the seizures under control at the direction of my dad, I found out what dog trainers make, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so doing this. So I did get a certification from a school called National Canine in Columbus, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically like the PhD of dog training that you can get. So I feel pretty good about that. And I still use it. People ask me to train dogs all the time. Like, I don't physically do it anymore. One of my old associates wants me to come back, and I just don't have the room for it right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll advise anybody on dogs. Like if they want to ask me questions about dogs, like I have no problem with that. But
yeah,
that decision, like getting hurt, not that it was a decision to get hurt at the concert, but it was a circumstance.
Right.
That was something that definitely changed the course of my life.
Yeah, it sure did. Wow. 3 words to describe you. What would you say?
So definitely resilient. I mean, with the head injury that I had, that I really did use the power of manifestation to correct what was going on there.
Mm-hmm.
At one point I was having an average of 8 grand malls a day, and they could not control them. No matter what they gave me. And I finally, when I came back here, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I have no time to be an epileptic anymore. I need to get on with my life.
Right.
And I did some very interesting study, and I treated myself with valerian root. This is totally against medical consideration. Like
right.
The doctor was like, I have to put all this in your file and you are never getting your driver's license back. And I was like, I'll bet you I do. Mm-hmm. So I, through this like really radical treatment of valerian root, I haven't had a seizure since 2001.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. No, I went from having like 3 or 4 a week to 0.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was, I was begging them for like an implant in my brain. Like there was, I was all over the place. So, it's pretty wild, but, I just, and it's so funny. Well, it's not funny, but my daughter, one of her castmates at her last performance had epilepsy and had a grand mal in front of her. And she was like, Mom, I froze. And I was like, well, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to move things away from them. Don't touch them. Like, let them finish the seizure, call for help, give her the rundown. And she was like, I feel so bad that like, I didn't know what to do. And you have epilepsy. I'm like, yeah, but I haven't had a seizure since you were born,
Right.
You can't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's nothing to be freaked out about, like just let it ride. You're fine,
And resilient, so that you're very resilient.
Resilient.
Yeah.
Determined. Like I am a bulldog when it comes to certain things. Like I don't like to take no for an answer. I mean, that's like the salesperson in me. Like, it's like, well, why not? Like, wait, what can we do to sweeten this deal? So, determination, I think is a big pillar for me. But funny, like, our house is very funny. Like all four of us are really, really funny people. We all have a great sense of humor. So like, I just, I want people to know that I'm funny. I'm not like, dead serious all the time. I do like to have a lot of fun. I love to laugh. And I want people to remember me as funny. So I want to brand myself as funny.
You're definitely funny. I enjoy your humor a lot. So boy, you can really answer this one because you've walked the walk. What do you think makes a woman truly strong?
So, a disclaimer this, some people think that I'm a little misogynistic because I really do think that women have strengths that men don't have. And some people take that the wrong way. I don't brand myself as a feminist at all because I do think it's kind of gotten a dirty word. It's become a dirty word being a feminist. Like everybody thinks you have like one of those pink hats on and you're, screaming in the street. But, I think understanding what makes women different and have different strengths from men is what, the understanding of that is what makes women strong. And like police work, for example, like I feel a certain way about women in police work. I want responding officer, firefighter, women in police work. I want them to be a 6'3" Brienne of Tarth.
Right.
If I'm being punched in the face by a man, I want somebody who can take him. I want somebody, I don't care that they have one of these on them. I want someone that can physically fix that problem for me.
Right.
So, some people may say that that's a little judgmental. I mean, if a woman is a black belt in whatever martial arts discipline and, she's the Chuck Norris or Bruce Lee of whatever, I'm fine with that too. But I think that women have a skill set that is sometimes undervalued culturally because it is so different from the male strength. Male strength is boldness, loudness, bigness, strength, and women's strength is so much more subtle and discreet, if you will. So, and one of the things that I put in my notes here, and I say this all the time, I teach it to my tarot students, my psychic students, in the tarot court, the queens, they rank below the kings, but in my opinion, they rank kind of together because the queens whisper, the kings command. So the queens are the ones that are doing all the back work. We're doing all the gestation, if you will, and then the kings are doing the delivery. So I think that we play equally weighted roles, and really understanding our strengths, like, and I don't mean like I can bat my eyes at somebody and make them buy what I'm selling and a guy can kind of talk them into it. We just have different ways of getting to our goals. And I think that it's really important to recognize that, whereas men think in a straight line, like, something is broken, grab tool, fix item. Women are more like a sphere. They kind of look at how they can affect the whole situation and kind of work from the outside in, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Yes. Yes, it does. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful pairing, a man's strength and a woman's strength in a marriage or a partnership. It really is. I'm just making sure you didn't forget anything.
Oh, did I?
No, I don't know. I'm just looking. Okay, so what's the hardest thing you've ever lived through? You may have already said.
So that was definitely moving back east to get my epilepsy under control, just because I had been on the phenobarb cocktail
Right.
out in California, and it was horrible. I drooled on it. I would be catatonic and just like sitting on the couch. And I remember I would sit there and I would drink cup after cup of coffee, trying to keep myself from like, I don't want to say disassociating, because I know that's a different term, but I would just be shut off. Like it like clicked off my personality. It was really terrible. So when I came back here, the first neurologist that my dad had found was like, I want to give the phenobarb a try again. And I was like, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you will never put me on that drug. I said, I refused to do it. It was 3 times a day, and it was this handful of pills. And I just knew that I was going to feel horrible on it. And I was still having seizures. So, I was catatonic and then having a seizure on top. It was good times all around. But that was the hardest thing, because I didn't have a driver's license. I bought my house. My ex-husband was very, very generous with me when we split up. And so I bought my house, and I had plenty of money in the bank to take care of whatever I needed to. Mm-hmm. That was like, I was like, all right, well, here I am. I'm a ticking time bomb with seizures. I can't even go out to see a show or go to lunch with people. Like, there's a certain amount of shame with epilepsy, because you can lose your bladder, you can lose your bowels, you can throw up, you can choke. Right. You become this huge liability for everybody that's around you. Mm-hmm. And, there's a certain amount of vanity. You don't want to go out and become this medical spectacle, and so I very much stayed locked down in my house for I think it was like a couple of years. I really was like, I don't want to really risk it, go out there and be embarrassed in public or anything like that. And I didn't have a driver's license. So that's taking your freedom away, wholesale. Oh, you can't go anywhere, Right. So that was very difficult. And, there wasn't an understanding from my family, because they had not seen me have seizures. And it wasn't until one of my aunts saw me have a grand mal, mm-hmm. that she kind of relayed that information to my family. No, they were like, how bad could it be? Right. And she was like, it was bad. She was like, it was terrible. And I know my aunt said the worst part was that I turned gray.
Oh,
yeah. And that I have what's called an aura.
Right.
Before my seizures. And it sounds like helicopter rotors. It's like,
oh my goodness.
And so I know when a seizure is coming, and that's apparently when my whole pallor turns a very gray color.
Okay.
I've had more than one person tell me that. So my aunt basically thought I was dying, so, so that was, I think, the hardest thing I've ever lived through.
Okay. I'm going to skip 7 because you're boring. For everybody listening, the question was there a moment you didn't think you would make it, but you did? And Annabelle basically says no. She pushed through. I'm shocked. I know you're all shocked. How did hardship change you? Because you've said you were fairly poor.
Yeah, we were. I mean, single mom, 70s and early 80s. It's it was not easy. She worked, obviously. And we basically, I could cook when I was in 2nd grade. I basically, I cooked for my sister. She's older than me. But I can live poor. I don't like to.
Right.
But I can live poor. And I remember when I was in college, like this was like a fun little game that I would play with myself. I would see how little money I could spend every day. And like I had like this whole calculation of like how much electricity, like I broke down the electricity. So I was like turning off lights in my apartment
Right.
and washing dishes like by hand instead of in the dishwasher, not using any dishes, just like eating out of a container. It was a fun game, and it's something that I have failed to teach my children, that it's possible to live really, really cheaply.
Right.
It's possible to like pull it back to like the lowest amount of money possible. And it's something that I think we're going to do this summer. I mean, Ella and I have some projects that are going to cost some money, but I think it's something I'm going to do this summer and just see how little can you spend. And like my 18-year-old son, like he could spend $100 on food every day. He's hungry. But we'll see. I did start to trim down some of my business expenses because we live in a service, like a service culture. So, there's things like Marbleism. Like Marbleism is an app that'll run my inbox, all of my social media, like it'll run my business for me. And do I want to add that expense, or is it more cost effective for me to do it? Like that, like I'm starting to make decisions about things like that. Like Marbleism may be something that comes into my business if I find that it saves me time and there's a return on investment. But I like we all have like a lot of apps that we really don't use, so there's some things that I'm trimming out now that just aren't relevant. They're expenses that I can write off, but am I using them effectively? Do I need to, put out $10-$20 a month for those? Not really. So I'm kind of in that paring down. Numerologically, 2026 is a 1 year, which is like setting the groundwork. We're enriching the soil. The field's already tilled, and we're just kind of enriching the soil for what we're going to build. So I've like really embraced that energy for this year.
Good. Has anyone ever made the mistake of underestimating you, Annabelle?
I have to say, like, at my old corporate job, my former corporate job, they did underestimate me. They did think that I was going to be grateful for crumbs, and
right.
I'm not, I did demonstrate that I was a company gal, and I get the bigger picture. My father was in manufacturing. I get the bigger picture. I understand that, it may be one account or one policy that I'm working on, but it does feed into the bigger beast and the revenue for the company, which I think a lot of younger people, like, well, I made all my phone calls, so what if they didn't bind? No, like if you don't close it, we can't afford to pay you, So I think that in my former position, they did think that I was a lifer.
Right.
And I know that there was a conversation that was behind closed doors where they said, well, her husband's a cop. She doesn't need that much of a raise. Got back to me. So, I think that they underestimated the need. And even though I was expressing it, I think rather than need, they saw it as greed. And I did correct that. As I was leaving, I did say, you really should have looked at this very differently. And to date, they hired 3 people to replace me. 3
How
new
about that?
people, and they also split some of my work among 2 other existing employees. Both of whom had called me and said, wow, like, how did you do this every day? And I'm like, yeah, try doing it times 4. I talk real fast, and I could distill my conversations down to what I needed to say. Despite that, some of my leadership at corporate was like, some of your calls are a little bit long. I'm like, you tell me how you sell a $50,000 policy in less than 10 minutes. How do you do that?
Right.
Now they were like, well, if you're making all these other phone calls, like you should be able to, just lock it down. I'm like, all right, whatever. I'd make an average of like 80 phone calls a day, 300 emails a day. Like, give me a break. Like I was working like this. I challenge them to give that to somebody who's a little slower moving.
Right.
So they underestimated me. They definitely did. But I do want to say, an aside, my parents underestimate me all the time. And that's because I'm the baby.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
The baby doesn't do anything. The baby is just the baby. So Greg's the baby too. So I think sometimes he's underestimated as well.
I know with my daughter, who's the baby, that I don't know. I don't see her as 40. I still see her as a little girl, and I need to.
My dad says that every birthday. He's like, "How old are you?" And I'm like, 54. Yeah. And he's like, "How did that happen?" I'm like, "I don't know. How did it happen to you?" Whoop, did I lose you? Are we still here?
Did you lose me?
Oh, no, we're still here. Okay. Yeah, so my ear popped. Sorry.
That's all right. What pain in your life ultimately made you stronger?
So I my next oldest is 2 years older than me. But I have two step siblings that we grew up with. And they were exhausted and they were doing business. They were overseas. Their gas tank had kind of run out. So, I kind of was, on my own at a very young age, like an exceptionally young age.
Yes.
That I think made me grow up. And I think a lot of Gen Xers say this, like, we've been working since we were 13. We, had to be adults, all day long. And, I think that made me stronger. I think it made me more independent. And I think it made me more prepared to just kind of step out and be an adult, like right away. But, I wish it had been different. I wish like I had gotten to go on all the college tours that my siblings went on. That I wish there was more effort like put into like where I was going to wind up. Like my college choice, my folks were like, "You're staying in state." I wanted to go to Tulane so bad. My brother went there. And Tulane has an amazing English program. They have an amazing music program. And I've taken music lessons my whole life. I have 8 years of opera. I play the cello. I play the flute. I play the cello very, very badly. I was better at the flute. But, I wanted to go to Tulane. And when I told my parents, I was like, I really want to go to Tulane. They were like, no way. Your brother went there and he had way too much fun. So I was like, okay, so I can't go there. And then I looked at like California schools, and my mom was like, nope, you're staying in state. You're not going out of state, and my one sister went to American. She was down in Washington, D.C. My other sister, she stayed in state. But, I think, going back to the underestimating, I think that they should have, kind of embraced me going out of state and kind of setting me up for that. Instead, I kind of felt like I was always looking over my shoulder, like, am I doing the right thing? Like, am I supposed to do this? And ultimately, like I had to, be my own underwriter. I had to be like, all right, I guess this is okay. So I guess that makes me stronger. I mean, I'm raised by wolves a little bit. So, I'm a little unpredictable. But at 54, you're still figuring it out. You're still making those adjustments and kind of figuring it out.
Yeah. And speaking of which, still figuring it out. When did you first realize you didn't need anyone's permission to live your life?
So I am still seeking approval from everyone. Hit the like, subscribe to my channel. I do like feedback. And I think that we really grow through both positive and negative feedback.
Right.
So I think it's important. But when I make up a decision, like I'm going to do, I mean, okay, when I decided to resign from my corporate job, that was an 18-month long conversation with my husband. It was, I think I'm hitting the ceiling here. They're giving me more work. They're not giving me more money. Should I, shouldn't I looked for another circumstance. There was a problem with the no compete that I was going to have. So I think I've decided I don't need people's permission for the decisions that I've made. Like
Right.
I'll ask for feedback while I'm making a decision. And once the decision's made, I don't expect anybody to, stamp their approval on that. Like it just, you're going to have to deal with what I'm doing.
Right.
So I mean, that part of it, I rely more on metrics for approval or disapproval, in what I'm doing with my business and with my day to day. I kind of look at metrics with my kids and my husband as
Right.
well. So
Yeah.
don't really need anybody's permission to like live my life, but
Right.
I will
Good.
take this back.
Good. Annabelle, have you ever had to start over from scratch, and what was that like?
So this is a caveat. There's a little bit of privilege mixed in here because my dad was an extraordinary component to this. When I split up with my son's dad, I dated him before I was 21, and after I had Ella and established my business and my farm, we started dating again.
Okay.
And I got pregnant with Angus, and
Okay.
he asked me. I did not have a mortgage on my farm, but my dad did contribute to the purchase. I had about half of the purchase price for it. So Alan had wanted me to move in with him, and my mother was really gung-ho because it was all the way back at the beach, and it was going to be closer to my parents. And my mom was like, I'll help you with the baby, and blah, 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 blah. And so I moved in with him, and I knew within 6 months it was a mistake. Sold my house and, tried to kind of chug along. Did about 4 years, and at about the 4-year mark, we were living separately in the house. Fortunately, it was a large house. So Hurricane Sandy happened, and he really went off the rails in terms of disconnection from the relationship.
Yeah.
So, there's a whole anecdotal situation. I mean, Hurricane Sandy for us was horrible. My dog died. He had a heart attack. He did not drown or anything like that. But my bulldog had a heart attack. My father almost died. He had an esophageal bleed down in Florida, and they flew him back. It was like a whole crazy thing. Then Alan got an appendicitis and wound up in the hospital. The storm we got hit by, I was at my parents' house, but we got hit by the storm surge. The creek overflowed and the water treatment plant overflowed. And so the house had 6 feet of water in it. It was,
Right.
Yeah, it was quite dramatic. So it became apparent about 2 weeks after Hurricane Sandy that the relationship was not going to be sustainable in the house anymore. And I left. I had $50 to my name.
Wow.
And I had $50 left in my bank account. I had spent all of my money from the sale of my farm because he was not supportive of me financially while I was there. I had a lease on my car. I had health insurance that I had to pay for. I had no discernible income. And that was as close to scratch as I ever want to be ever again.
Yes.
I managed to find probably the last rental available in New Jersey. And my dad, just a whole bunch of things came together very nicely. And my dad said, I will take care of all of your expenses, get a job, go back to work. And I was working part-time in insurance at that moment. And so they were, I worked for a big name insurance company, and they were like, let's put you on full time. Let's do all these things. And um, they kind of helped out as well. So, but it was a wild time. But
Yes, it was.
I am so grateful to my dad. Like I literally would have been on the street.
Yeah.
Like I literally would have been on the street,
Yeah.
and I don't know where my kids would have wound up. So it was. I think my dog died as a favor. I think he exited as a favor. He was born into my hands. I was there when he was born, and so
Oh,
I was there when he left. And I think Lopi did me a huge favor and said, "You know what? I'm going to check out so you can go unfettered." I there was no way I was going to be able to rent a place with a 130-pound American bulldog. Like
right.
he was not an
Right.
indoor dog.
Well, that's wonderful about your dad. It kind of chokes me up a little bit because I miss mine so much, and that kind of love and just saying, I'm going to help you, and you go save your money, and don't worry about it, and get back on your feet because I love you,
Yeah.
and especially Anna. I mean, he's your stepdad, and that's extraordinary to have
He's
had that.
an extraordinary person. He just turned 89.
Yeah.
And I texted him and I said, "So what are you going to do today?" And he goes, "I'm taking my Corvette out." So he's going out in his Corvette. So and he's in great shape. I'm so grateful. Both my parents are very healthy.
Yes.
They're really, really living their best life. And I don't see them enough. I don't go down and visit them in Florida enough. When they're here, I don't visit them enough. But they're living their best life. Like I'm not like some people are worried about their parents. Like, oh, are they bored? Are they, are they eating enough? Are they drinking enough water? My parents are having the time of their life. So
that's wonderful.
I'm never worried about them.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So what does independence mean to you now versus when you were younger?
So I was far more independent when I was younger. And I motherhood changed me because now I've got these people that I'm responsible for. I mean, they're up and like walking around and doing their own thing, but if they're hungry, they can go get something to eat. If they're tired, they go to bed. If they're lonely, they call someone. But when I was in my 20s, and this was something that I was known for, like I just had my Rottweiler. I had a Rottweiler named Bandit, and he was amazing. He was the nicest dog in the world. He was so chill. He would just like kind of go anywhere with me. I would take him to classes at my university. I would tell my professors, "Oh, it's too hot. I can't leave him outside." Like, why'd you bring your dog to school? I don't know, but I have my dog. He'll just lay here. And they were like, "Oh, like really cool dog." So he was like coming to class. I would like sneak him in all the time, but it was. I felt like I was accountable to far less when I was younger. So I was far more independent. Now, I mean, my son would probably say like I'm intrusive. But I have to know what's going on. I have to know where they are, if they're hungry, if they need a shot, if they need a haircut. I mean, Angus got a haircut yesterday with me. Like I have to be kind of involved in that, even though they're both flexing their independence. I still, I'm still that mama. I'm a Cancer. I'm still mama bear. I'm still going to be there. I still want to know that they're happy, they're healthy, they're okay. So I do think, I mean, maybe independence comes later, but I don't think it does. I don't think I'm ever going to be like, woohoo, empty nester. I'm not looking forward to being an empty nester at all. Like I would build like one of those Italian compounds. Like I want everybody here. So, I guess, I have to say, I feel like I gave up my full independence in the delivery room. But I guess like in the future, I'll have to see like what shakes out, like how I'm going to feel differently about, my kids, like maybe like when they have jobs and they're on rails and they have their own places to live. And like, I know that they're okay. I mean, I'm always going to be worried. I know that comes with motherhood, but,
Right.
I don't feel that I'm independent. I do feel somewhat like the generator of the family tree. So like, I have to kind of know what's going on. I have to kind of, make sure that the legacy is going in the right direction.
Right. Right. No, I understand. I understand. Was there a moment you chose yourself, even if it was difficult?
Yeah, definitely. Um, in that period where I was injured, and my mom told me that they weren't going to fund my graduate degrees.
Right. Right.
Because I was like, well, I can go get an assistantship, I can go apply for grants and scholarships, but now I have like a 6 month period. I had all of my applications ready to go. I was like, I'm in this gray area. My degree has prepared me for nothing. That's the fun thing about an English degree. An English degree prepares you for anything and nothing at the same time.
Right.
You can launch to anything with it. It gives you great communication skills. It gives you an ability to write and research and do all these things. But when you write that on an application, like they're like, okay, well, and like that's kind of what happens when you go into the workforce. And I mean, you've watched my channel. I can talk for hours about the Russian Revolution, but is someone going to hire me for that? So I think one of my friends, when my mother told me we're not paying for the rest of your master's or your PhD, one of my friends was in from California. He lived up in Oakland, and he was like, listen, we live in a big warehouse. They had this cool, like, converted warehouse, and like all of the offices were turned into bedrooms.
Oh, neat.
And they had like a cable access TV show that they filmed there, and everybody was kind of postgraduate, post high school, like figuring out what they were doing. We had a skate ramp in there. We had a half pipe on one side, and he was like, why don't you move out to Oakland? Like we have rooms, like just come out to Oakland. I was like, I got pets. I got a dog, a cat. And he was like, we don't care. Bring them, And I was like, you know what? Like, this isn't a bad idea. It's like, I tell people, like, we had 3 beers and 3 days I was in the car leaving, going to California. And my mother was like, wait, what are you doing? You're abandoning the family. And I said, well, in the words of Bilbo Baggins, I'm going on an adventure. And I always, I knew from the time I was 13 that I was going to wind up in California at some point. And so it did feel kind of destined that I had to like go out to the West Coast for a little bit. I never fully assimilated. I never really felt at home there.
Right.
But my mom was very resentful. And my father was very baffled. He was confused as to why I would go out, no job, I mean, I had like a little job, but he was like, what are you doing? Like, you're just going to uproot and go over there. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
And I was like, I have to do this. Like, this is my family. My dog and my cat are my family. And I have to go, and this was, on the cusp of my next oldest sister. Everybody was married, had kids, and, were building their families. And she was like, ugh, look at you. You're a loser with no family of your own. And I was like, oh, that's not very nice. So I did feel somewhat disenfranchised, by her. And I said, well, you know what, I'll go on out and do my own thing out there. And it was great. It was great fun. Like I had a great time out there. Hated surfing out there, but I did have a good time out there.
Well, Kat says Anna on The Real World.
So that's actually funny that she said that, because the first Real World that was on, I can't remember the entire cast, but Eric, what's his face from New Jersey, was on it. I was, at that time when they were filming it, I was dating a cameraman. His name was Frankie from Deer Park, Long Island. I was dating him, and he was the camera guy for The Real World and for Cindy Crawford House of Style.
Oh my goodness.
He used to come down on the train with Eric, what's his face? You guys would know. Eric Neese, I think his name is. Eric Neese. But he would come down to my place in Belmar on the train with Eric Neese or whatever his name was. So I have a weird connection with The Real World.
That is so interesting.
We actually had dinner plans with Richard Gere and Cindy Crawford one night, and they canceled.
Oh,
I was so mad. I was like, oh my God, this is like,
oh man.
And they had to cancel. They had something going on.
I love Richard Gere. Oh,
I know. I just wanted to stare at Cindy Crawford.
My goodness. I'm going to skip a question. Anna. What has love taught you?
Oh, so yeah, this is an interesting question. So and it sounds very codependent, but I think that earned love is like the best love. Like, sometimes we love on people in our world, and I always say that all relationships are transactional. Like, you're getting something out of it. There's an exchange of goods in all relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that that's a manipulative thing to say, but when I see the return on investment when I pour into my kids.
Right.
My daughter is my best of best friends. And, like I know what goes on with her. She's not as effusive as me, but, like it's always, I love you, mom, like it's always that. My son is the
Mm-hmm.
harder sell.
Yeah.
And it's not that I value his earned love to me more than my daughter's. I just have to work a little bit harder for it.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Exactly. Yep.
So that like really sparks me up. Like, yesterday I had a great day with him. He had a bad morning, and I was able to kind of turn it around, and he was happy and he was smiley by the end of the day, and he's happy and smiley today. So
Good.
so that packs a little bit more of a punch.
Yes.
But it's equally, my daughter, I'm a little bit more relaxed in that, exchange of goods in the relationship. But with Angus, I got to try a little bit harder. He's like I said, he's a harder sell.
I can identify with that completely. Absolutely. And in the same way that my daughter, I don't know, the love is just there, and I have to work harder for it with one of my sons. I know exact. And when it comes back to me, I don't know, the reward is just, it's different. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay. So this is going to be painful. Have you ever had to walk away from something or someone you loved?
Yeah. So, one of my best friend from my 20s and 30s. We went to high school together. My girlfriend, Tiffany, she passed away in December under terrible circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
She did overdose on a substance. But Tiffany was the Patsy to my Adina. We were thicker than thieves. She was an only child, a great mom. I love her mom. I was over there more than I was at my house,
Yeah.
and Tiffany was so much fun. Like, just to kind of paint the picture for you. So, she was tall, blonde, hourglass figure, beautiful face. She went to college out in California, but came back and she became a flight attendant for one of the big airlines.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would fly all over the place with her. She always had a buddy pass for me. But we were at Randy Gerber's bar, Cindy Crawford's husband now. And the whiskey, and like we would just zip into the city. I mean, we're so close to the city, we just zip in, and we would zip into the city at all hours, and go dancing or grab some drinks. And one day she called me up and she's like, "Ugh, I need to date somebody that is going to want to travel and has some money. Let's go to Randy Gerber's bar. Let's go to the whiskey, and I'm going to see if like I can make friends with the stockbroker." And so I was like, "All right, let's go." So we go, and I'm like in Vans and, like a sweatshirt. Like I'm not as glammed up as I am right now. And she's like this glamazon,
right.
Just really, she was so funny. One day she went through my underwear drawer and she was like, "Oh my God, we're throwing everything out. We're going to Victoria's Secret right now." She literally threw all of my underwear out.
Aww.
So we go into the whiskey, and 5:00, 4:30 happens, and the bar's starting to fill up with all these stockbrokers and finance guys, and they're flocking around her because she's gorgeous and blonde. And so I kind of got squeezed out. So I just went over and sat down in like this little seating area. And this dude comes over and he sits across from me. And, he's cute, but he wasn't like the best looking guy. And he was a little shorter. And he goes, "So you're her ugly friend. And I was like,
What?
And he goes, no, it's okay. I'm the ugly friend too. Hi, my name is Kippy. Can I buy you a drink?
Jeez.
So I actually dated him for a little while. He's really a nice guy. I'm still friends with him on LinkedIn. But yeah, so like Tiffany was like this amazing dynamic person, and always, never had a dearth of boyfriends or opportunity or things to do. She was just one of those charmed people that always had like great stuff happening to her. She was this cherished only child. When you walk into that, and that was one of the things, like after she passed away and I went over to her mom's with another friend. I remembered that there were all these pictures like of Tiffany and all of us, like all of the friends are in these pictures too. And like when I walked in, I was like, I forgot how much her mom just cherished her.
Yeah.
And it was just everywhere. It's just so obvious. But Tiffany had a series of losses right before, I guess, like from like 2001 to like 2005. I was one of those losses. I got pregnant and was kind of on a different track, but she'd had a boyfriend like me, had a boyfriend that died in a car accident right at that time. And this was someone who was begging her to marry him.
Oh.
And she was like, no, I want to travel. I don't. And he was like, I want you to marry me and have babies. And she was like, I don't want to do any of this. Like, I still want to have some fun. There's still some life in me. And it was perhaps a missed opportunity. His accident was like a freak accident. It was really a very, very strange accident. But I knew she was making choices in her life that didn't align with me. Having a brand new preterm baby that needed a lot of care and a lot of, a present mother. I just couldn't have her around people that were doing substances. I mean, I don't think any parent, wants that. So I really did distance myself from her. And as Ella got a little bit older, and had Angus a few years later, I maintained contact with her, but she was getting more and more erratic. She was getting more and more obviously damaged. And at one point I had called up he went to school with us, but he was a few years younger. And he was a substance abuse counselor. And I said, listen, so-and-so, I want to set up an intervention. I want to do this. She needs one. And he said, well, start at the top. He goes, who are you going to bring in? And so I rattled off this list of people, the closest people to her. And he said, Anna, I want you to read that list back to me. And he goes, kind of checked off the list. He was like, this one's clearly an alcoholic. This one's clearly doing some other stuff. This one's clearly doing some other stuff. And he was like, I don't think that this is going to be effective. And he said, the best thing we can do is kind of wait for her to bottom out. I don't think, she's going to bottom out quite as much as you think she's going to bottom out. And at the time we thought her substance of choice was different from what it was. We now know it was something otherwise.
Okay.
When I found out that she passed away in December, and September and October, she had been, telling me, hey, I want you to come down. She has 2 properties in Florida, and she just finished redoing the beach house. And she's like, I want you to come to the beach house. And I said, I really can't. Like, I have to work, and it's really hard for me to work from remote places. And I've got the kids, like we've got college and all this stuff is going on. And I'm sorry that I didn't go down, because I do think there's a little survivor guilt here. Like, I could have made a difference. But in retrospect, acutely, I felt that. But in retrospect now, I'm like, I should have dragged her to a rehab in 2005, 2006. I should have said, I should have played into her vanity. I mean, And I say that with like all due respect and love, because I'm a vain person. Like I don't like to go out looking like a some chewed up ground
Yeah.
beef,
Yeah.
But I should have grabbed her and I should have said, you look like crap and we're going to fix this and we're going to make you beautiful again. And we're going to fix it. And I didn't.
But
And
you had Elle, didn't you?
I did.
I
But
don't think you should feel that way. I mean, me telling you that's not going to make it not true, but
yeah,
I would have done the same thing.
I do just feel that and everyone has said you wouldn't have made a difference, like you would not have made a difference. And I don't know. I mean, she was pretty impactful on me. I think she was a little bit more stubborn than I am.
Yeah.
But there is that walking away was the right thing to do for me.
Yes.
It was the right thing to do for my child, but
yes.
it was not the right thing to do for someone that was like a sister to me. It really wasn't. So
I'm sorry.
I'll work that out eventually. I'm still, I hate to say this, but it's going on April. It still really hasn't hit me that she's gone.
Yeah. No, I understand.
It's very strange. Like I've never experienced this before. So I'll work it out though. I will eventually work it out.
Yes, you will. What do you think is the biggest misconception about women as they age?
So, and I said that we're all Karens, like that we, I think if we are, bitchy and assuming, in our 20s, like that is going to stay the same or accelerate as we get older. Right? That's what I think.
Okay.
I think we're just, born into a certain behavior. But so many people think baby boomers, Gen X, Generation Jones now, like they all think like, oh, well, she's a Karen. And I love the Gen Xers that are like, oh, I'm not a Karen, I'm a Heather. Like, get it right. So, I think that we get cranky and dissatisfied and, kind of just bitchy, like, that we get bitchy as we get older. I think that there's a certain amount of, I now allow myself to say what I really think.
Right.
I do think that there's value in my undiluted opinion when it is necessary. And if that is being bitchy, then, I'm sorry, but that's the life is very short. And I'm not going to sit here on my hands and be polite. I think the idea, and I do think this comes from the idea of women, like when our childbearing years are over, we're kind of done. Like our purpose is kind of mission accomplished, like go on with your bad self. Like in Game of Thrones, they took all of the Dothraki widows and they tucked them into this tent, and that's where they had to stay. I think kind of you're done, like when that obligation is done. I think that's something that colors the misconceptions about women as they get older. There's more that we can contribute, and now like longevity, I mean, look at Jane. I'm not a big fan of Jane Fonda, but look at Jane Fonda. She's still like cranking it and doing things in the 80s. Our longevity has changed that. So even if we can't produce as we're supposed to, we can still contribute in different ways. There's a certain amount of wisdom that comes with that. And I referenced Mae Musk in this, Elon Musk's mom, because she was very beautiful. And I think she did do some print work when she was younger, but now that she is older, she is like a full-blown supermodel. And she's like kickstarted this whole new career. And I think she's fabulous. And I think she's a really interesting person. I like interesting people, like, Gordon Ramsay, Iman, David Bowie. Like I like interesting people. Mae Musk is one of them. And I think women can get more interesting as they get older.
For sure.
There's more layers to us. There's, if we're like the generational standard bearers, we kind of mark the passage of time. I think, men, again, at the risk of sounding misogynistic, men are the ones that kind of create that infrastructure, and we're the ones that kind of decorate it and make it more interesting. The way I look at it is like, men, if they did like a family tree, it would be name, rank, serial number. But if women did, it would be like name, rank, serial number. And here's this amazing piece of art that they did. This is the quilt that my great-great-grandmother created. And like there would be more dimension to that family tree. So I think the contributions of women are undervalued sometimes when we're talking about like that generational building.
Yeah, definitely. How did your relationship shape the woman you've become?
So I think, and I lean heavily into my relationships with my gals, my tribe. I am very, very fortunate. My bestest friends I've known since kindergarten. It was one of the bonuses of moving back to town here is some of them still live in town.
Mm-hmm.
So, we can have that face-to-face relationship. But, I think sisterhood is really important. And I think being a good counterpart as a female is something that some women don't value. There is, and I tease my girlfriend Kay all the time because she's Greek, and I'm like, maybe we should just like have an island like the Amazons, like Wonder Woman in the Amazons. And he's like, that would be great, But movies or shows like The Golden Girls,
Mm-hmm.
I love that idea of sisterhood that goes into older advanced stage. I think that's amazing. Like, we can do that. And I think when you have a strong tribe of women around you, strong friendships with women, I think that you get to not so much live vicariously through them, but you get to benefit from their circumstances, maybe the guy they're dating or the trouble that they had at work, or my girlfriend Kathy that just lost her dad. She was hands-on through the whole hospice process. She was the only one doing it. Those kinds of things, I think we can share better among our tribe and help support each other. Like Kathy, like when her father went to the hospital two trips ago, she called me one day. She calls me in the middle of the day and she's like, "What are you doing, bitch?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm having lunch. What are you doing?" But this one day I was just sitting down to work and she called me and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just sitting down to work." And she goes, explicative. And I said, "Why? What's up?" And she goes, "They just rushed my dad to the hospital. My car's in the shop. I got to get over there." And I said, "Stay put. Where are you?" "I'm on my way. I'm not working. I'm on my way. I'll get you there. What do I got to do? Tell me where you are." So, I think, kind of having that experience through her, I kind of understand the mechanism of, the whole hospice. And again, both my parents are in very, very good health. So I don't think that anything like this is in my future, or present future. But, I think, we can all be a support, when one of us has to experience that next, the unfortunate of us that'll have to experience that next. But like, my old friends are fantastic. I mean, they know me warts and all, as young as I was. But I have new friends like you and Becky that's in the chat, Samantha and Zephyr, my girlfriend Debbie, who's, on my channel, she's one of my mods. These are new friendships that I have that have very, very different origin stories. So we're putting more into the pot that's going to be different and unusual.
Yes.
I mean, and you and I connect because we're Jersey
Jersey. Yep.
but Zeph comes from a completely different place. Samantha comes from the United Kingdom. Becky comes from the United Kingdom. Very, very different cultures. But the all of that goes into the mechanism of what we turn out to be. So learning from like Becky's experience being an expat, or Samantha's experience having 6 kids, like a situation that I would love to be in. Samantha's going to have a very full family tree. I think that the relationships that I have with women are changing me as a woman. I'm going to take little bits and pieces of that with me, as we do with all relationships. We absorb a little bit. So I think that my relationships with women specifically change the woman that I am and the way that I present myself, and to my benefit, because left to my own devices, I would probably be just like a lunatic.
And you said something I found really profound when you sent me your answers. You said, my best friends have changed the way I demand to be treated.
Oh, yes. Because through the experiences that they've had, I think that it gives us permission to demand a higher level of service from the interpersonal relationships that we have. So, for example, if one of my girlfriends has, a weird relationship with a guy or a gal, or whatever their preference, living again, experiencing that vicariously through them, I can now say, well, you know what? I see the missteps that happen there. We've talked about the missteps. And now I can demand of the people that are around me and interacting with me that I want to live to a higher level. I want to experience my life in this perspective. And I don't want to settle for that. I'll compromise a little bit, but I do think the ask, in sales, they always tell you, like, the hardest thing to learn is to ask for the sale. And I think in relationships, sometimes it's hard to ask for that want or that need, more so the need. And I do think that, demanding that need, this is what I need to proceed with this relationship, or proceed with this conversation, or proceed with this job position. I think it is much easier to start making those demands, definitive demands, when you've had the practice through your friend group, and you've had the roll up your sleeves, get in the muck kind of experience with it.
Right. That's great. This next question, your answers really, I take them to heart. What would you tell women who are afraid of being alone? I'm not so much afraid of it as I'm just kind of, it's a whole new experience for me. Because like I went from my dad right to my husband. And so I've never lived alone. So I really found your answers here very helpful to me anyway.
Oh, I'm so glad. I would, women that are afraid to be alone. So one of the exercises that I do with my students and my clients, and it's based on the book, The Secret, which I thought was, kind of like, I didn't want to get into it because, like, Jennifer Aniston was into it. I was like, I'm not going to, talk to that, like, engage with one of these guru things again.
Right.
But it actually is really cool because it, The Secret, in a nutshell, it tells you every day, write down 10 things that you're grateful for, and then start to write the things that you want to bring into your life. So it's through gratitude that we open this door of creation and manifestations, basically, in a nutshell. And I take it one step further because as a writer, I like to write the story. So I said, wouldn't it be interesting if we get up every day and we write where we want to be, or what we want to be, or how we want to be. We write the plot of the job interview that we're going to have, or the confrontation that we're going to have with one of our friends. And you kind of write it out, and it gives you this opportunity to practice what you're going to say, practice how you're going to be. And if women are afraid of being alone, draft that world in which you're not alone.
Right.
And that means, if you want to find a club that's going to, and I find it very alarming that a lot of women our age do have trouble making connections with other women. I have a girlfriend out on the West Coast that she moved to a different location a number of years ago, and she said, I can't connect with any of the women here. Like I can't make friends here. Nobody does it. My girlfriend that moved up into New York, she said the same thing. She said, this is a young person's city. And, I'm not going out to bars and making friends there. She said, I can't connect with anybody. And fortunately, she's close enough. She can zip in and out. But, I think finding community is important. Drafting how you find that community is something that we can do. We can kind of set the stage or till the soil to make that happen energetically. I mean, that's the psychic in me talking. We can find community on platforms like this. And I reaffirmed to my community last week that my chat will always be a place that they can come, and it's going to be, relatively drama free. Like, who doesn't love a little bit of drama? Like, I'm not flipping tables or anything, but, we like a little bit of drama, but, they can come and they can relax, and it's not going to be, crazy. I mean, my community does talk about politics sometimes, but no one ever gets crazy and gets mad or anything like that. Like, it's kind of reporting the news, so to speak. So, I one word of caution: catfish are real. There are people that are going to lie about who their identity is. So if you were to be up with somebody you meet on the internet, do your research, do your background checks, vet them carefully. But I do think that, we can create these little digital communities, and we can meet with people. Like I've got friends all over the world now. I've got clients all over the world. Like, it's crazy.
Right.
We met Dave. Dave is, a very nice person. And Greg and I were teasing. We were like, should we tell Dave, like, we're going to take him out to the Pine Barrens and leave him for dead? I was like, Greg was like, no, we can't do that. It's like, it's too creepy. We're still strangers. But I don't feel like a lot of my friends that are here on digital platform, on WhatsApp, I don't feel like they're, strangers. I do feel like they're friends, and they're very supportive. I mean, Zeph has been through a number of crises with me. She's kind of talked me down off the ledge. Becky has been a great support and sounding board, and she's like a little sister to me. I love it. I think finding community, and I do hope that the world will become more face-to-face for people our age soon. But the pandemic kind of changed all the dynamic of that. But, I think first, like, kind of write the existence that you want. If you're lonely, write about it, and then create a world that you're not lonely in, or create a pathway. I'm not saying like a to-do list, but you actually kind of write, like, hey, I'm going to meet people, and we're going to do this crochet class, and we're going to meet once a week in a bar, and we're going to drunk crochet, or we're going to meet in a park and make paper airplanes all afternoon and stare up at the sky and get suntan. Like, there are things that you can do energetically to kind of set the stage for that. And I really believe in that. It's a big jump for some people, but I really believe in that. I encourage people, find a community like Cindy's, where we're going to talk about being fabulous over 50. Like, this is the conversation that needs to be had. This is a forum that needs to have more data put into it. If you're into spooky stuff and mysterious stuff, come hang out in mine. Like, we've got people that are in there that like history, they like spooky stuff, they like politics. You want to make a cake, follow a cake maker, follow one of those amazing Russian cupcake pipers, like there's just, there's so much that you can do. And these online communities can translate into real life communities. They can happen. So, if you're lonely, you have to open your door. You have to volunteer, go over, hold preterm babies that don't have mothers or something like that. Like, there's all kinds of things that you can do to engage. So, Lady Fanny, she's going to have a great community that's coming up. I'm excited about Lady Fanny's community. So
Yes.
hopefully we'll be crocheting and drinking over there. But I especially want to underscore anybody that feels lonely, come to Cindy's community, come to my community.
Yes.
We've got great people, we've got great ingredients in our community, and there's always room for one more ingredient to get thrown in the pot.
And before I forget, since Lady Fanny's joined, thank you, Zephyr. She's having a live on Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So 11 p.m. still in Great Britain. And just kind of like she wants us to picture we're in a field of daisies with the sun shining, and we can talk about anything, and it's just going to be a great time. So I hope you'll consider going to her live on Friday. And we've dropped Annabelle's link again. Now, Annabelle, when did you feel the most confident in your life?
So when I was younger, I was ridiculously confident. Like, I would jump into any conversation. I would jump off any cliff. I would skate any half pipe. I was completely fearless. And I did get much more cautious after I had children.
Yes.
When I was younger, everything was an adventure. So I talk about the Fool card with my students, and the Fool card, it's the first card of the major arcana. And I describe it as like this very Bilbo Baggins kind of energy. Like, I'm going on an adventure. I'm just kind of like running out there. And the thing about that Fool energy is the Fool does not think that anything is going to go wrong. And if anything goes wrong, he's going to embrace it and go, look, this is just a side quest. It's good. There's going to be some good that comes out of it. So if we stop and go see Bjorn for a little while and spend the night over there, we're going to get some honey on delicious baked bread.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be an experience. We're going to meet another person. That kind of bold, foolish fearlessness. I don't want to necessarily call it confidence, but fearlessness.
Mm-hmm.
That disappeared when I had kids because I got very, cautious about them. And I think this is something that I want to cultivate in myself moving forward. I think I need to kind of re-embrace that, because sometimes I am a little bit cautious. I mean, with my business, I'm like, what do you think if we try like this kind of marketing? And like, I'll kind of roll the dice and let it happen. But I'm not quite as completely fearless. Now, on Monday, when I was doing all the college applications, and like I'm telling you, I was writing letters, I was making musical resumes for my son.
Right.
I was calling people. I wasn't just sending emails. I was actually getting on the phone with these band directors, and I'm like, "Hi, I'm Kris Kardashian, and I need to tell you about how fabulous my son is." So I teased my hairdresser. I was like, "I was Kris Kardashian yesterday. You need to cut my hair like that." And he was like, "Not on your life." So, I think that kind of, fearlessness versus, courage or confidence. I think that is something that I really, really, really want to revisit and bring back into my bag of tricks, so to speak. So,
Okay.
yeah. So not now, it's soon. You'll probably see it. Maybe I'll yell at somebody else on the internet.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to skip the next one and go down to what freedoms come with aging that younger women don't realize.
I was always very polite. when I was younger, even if someone said, "Does this outfit look terrible?" I was like, "Oh, it's okay." It's like not terrible. As I have gotten older, I am not afraid of what kind of response my opinion is going to generate. I'm not afraid of that anymore. I am much more definitive in what I like, what I don't like, what I think. Like if someone asks me, like if somebody called me up and said, "What do you think of my channel?" I would tell them exactly what I think about their channel. And I would give them like 5 things that I would adjust or change. Again, like I love feedback. I love data. And I have gotten, the more that I like that input for myself, the better I've gotten about giving that out as I get older.
Yes.
I love like the idea of like being this little old lady with my little shawl on and like giving out the pearls of wisdom from my life, but I want to be that person eventually, like I want to be that little old lady, maybe with gray hair, maybe with not gray hair. But I want to be able to like give that advice, not like, you look like crap and you should do something about that. But really true constructive criticism. I have the experience. I have, I put the time in and I'm able to articulate that. So, I think that freedom, and my grandmother was funny. My grandmother, she had dementia, but she's Italian. And she would give like the craziest compliments. Like she said to my sister one time, my sister will never forget this. "That's a really nice skirt, and it doesn't even make you look fat." So I hope that I'm an evolution of my grandmother saying things like that, and that I'm a little bit more conscientious and considerate of people's feelings. But like I could say that that makes you look very trim. That lovely skirt. I'm just not. I'm not afraid to call out somebody for being a complete jerk face. I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid of getting yelled at as I get older. Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to smack me across the face? Like, go ahead.
Right.
Like,
Right.
okay, see what happens next.
And what do you think women gain with age?
So wisdom, certainly. And this dovetails really nicely with the last question.
It does.
Wisdom and experience. And again, the standard bearers are, I'm going to correct that. We're not the standard bearers of the family tree, but we're more like the water carriers, like the water bearers. I do think that the wisdom and the wisdom we have, like the database that we have, and the wisdom of when to use it is really one of the most precious things that we gain as we get older. And I talk to my students. Ellen Cannon Reed was she was a Wiccan high priestess. She made a deck. She's got many terrific books and pieces of literature. But her deck, and it's the most expensive deck that I have. It is a very, very rare deck. The Three of Wands depicts the mother, the maiden, and the crone. And it's the 3 stages of womanhood. And when we are maidens, we are innocent, but we are this amazing vessel that is all possibility and creation. And we are creating within us. The mother is actually giving of herself. She is passing out her energy and her love and her caring and her nurturing. She's passing it out. When we are the crone, and nobody wants to be the crone, she's gray haired, her boobs sag, she's not in great shape, things are rickety, she's dried up, she's not fresh and plump like the maiden, she's not robust and shining like the mother, she's a little crusty and she's a little old and dusty. I know there's lots of people that like to talk about the grannies on, the tube of the U.
I know.
And, within us, we have that maiden. Within us, we have that mother. But now we can kind of compile it. Remember when you were a mom, and I tell everybody this when they're having kids, like you're going to be looking down for the next 5 years after you have that baby. You're going to be looking down and following a small child from place to place and taking things out of their hands.
Yep.
You're not really able to cultivate and direct in the way that we want. I mean, maybe some people that have 55 nannies and housekeepers and things like that can, but for the average woman, like we're not given that luxury of like, oh, maybe I should sit and think about how to most proactively raise this child. We're in like a reaction mode. So when we become that crone, when we become older, we have the luxury of time, and we get to kind of sit back and drop that wisdom and drop our experience on people in a more controlled environment, if you will. We're not so much affected by everything around us. I feel that as we get older, when we're the maiden, everybody's looking at us because they want to get in there and they want to make a baby, like that's what's going on. When we are the mother, everyone's watching us frantic. They're not helping. They're just kind of witnessing it. But as we get older, they all start to turn to us and look. And are they looking at the degradation of us? Are they looking at that and going, "Ooh, look at what happened"? Or are they looking at us for unwrapping the things that we know, the things that we can pass on to them? And it's one of my favorite cards in all tarot decks, the Three of Wands in that deck, in the Ellen Cannon Reed deck, because I do identify it with it so much. And I do think that it's a great way to look at aging, not as a punishment. Everybody wants to be, a supermodel or Kate Moss or, even a Playboy model, like something like that. That's a very robust figure, everybody wants to be that. Everybody wants to be attractive. And I think that we can still generate that attractiveness. I mean, again, like Kris Kardashian, like, look at her. She looks freaking fabulous. I know there's a lot of money that goes into that, but she looks amazing. The age of aging is getting older and older. My mother does not look how old she is, not by any stretch of the imagination. My father's 89. He looks 20 years younger. He looks great. I do think that we're resetting the clock. My generation, the baby boomers, Generation Jones, I think that we are resetting the clock and resetting the expectation of what I didn't think I was going to be like this at 55. I thought I was going to be a grandmother. I thought I was going to be all like, gray haired and have my wash and set going. I do wash and set my hair, but I thought I was going to be very different. I am getting into crone zone and I'm okay with it. I'm absolutely okay with it. I'm still going to do all I can to, present well and look good and be a little bit hip, even though my son says it's cringy. But I'm ready for that crone part of my life. I want to pass on the knowledge. I want to get the shawl and sit in the library with all the books and everything. I'm down with that. So, becoming the book of knowledge. Yeah. The crone zone. Greg's here. He's down.
Did you see his comment? I'm trying not to laugh here.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, and then Becky said, Sean changed me to the sink. Is that not okay? And Greg said he's very caring. He left you with a source of water.
See, funny goes a long way in this house.
It does. You guys are great. The crone zone. I love it.
Yeah, if Sam wants to use that for the name of her channel, I'm totally down with it.
There you go.
No copyright.
Channel coming soon. That is great. Anna, what advice would you give yourself, your 21-year-old self? And then you're 30.
When I was 21, I stopped singing in bands. I did sing in a band a little bit later. After I had the kids, I sang in a band. But when I was younger, I sang in a lot of bands, and I sang in punk rock bands. I sang in blues bands, and I wish that I had not given it up, but I did.
You're a trained singer, right? Your
Yes.
voice is trained. Yeah.
Yes. And I don't like bar culture. Like, I just don't like bar culture. Like, and
Right.
I think that's why I kind of drifted away from it. So once upon a time in South Belmar, it's now called Lake Como, in New Jersey, there was a bar called Jason's Jazz and Blues Club. It was owned by this amazing guy, Mel Hood. And Mel Hood was really good friends with BB King. And so when BB King would play the Art Center, he would leave the Art Center and go and play a closed set at Jason's Jazz and Blues Club. They would close the doors, they'd lock up.
Mhm.
And my uncle was real good friends with Mel Hood. So I got to see BB King play in a bar that is not much bigger than my living room.
Wow.
Like this close, like, and they would do an open mic night with a live band there. And I would get up and I would sing all the time there. And there were a lot of guys there that were like, why don't you commit and do like a regular set with us? And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. And I really should have. I am working on a like small gig. One of my friends, and it's a duo. It's my friend Brett and one of his other bandmates. They do an acoustic set at a local bar here on the Bay. And I have been telling Brett, I want to come out. I want to sing. I want to do a couple things. So we're talking about putting something together.
Oh,
Like once a month, once a week. It seems a bit much, but once a month seems doable. So when I lived in LA, I thought I was old because I was 27, which is old in LA in the industry. But I should have auditioned for more bands to do backup singing.
Mm-hmm.
And I should have gone out on the road. I should have leveraged my ex-husband's contacts in the industry, but I didn't want to,
I know.
I didn't want to be like, oh, I can sing too. So I should have done that. My 30-year-old self, I thought that I was so old.
Right.
Like, I thought I had missed out on everything. And I hadn't. I had like a very, very full life. I also thought that like I was out of shape, and I was in elite condition. And like I just was like, I did smoke cigarettes, so we'll say that. But I would have told my 30-year-old self, like, because I come back to New Jersey, I should have just been like, you don't have to stay here. You can still go, like you can leave again. You don't have to stay here. But I did. I stayed, so there. So that 21-year-old self, don't stop singing. 30-year-old self, moving back to New Jersey is not a sentence that you can't get out of.
Right. What advice would you give women who feel invisible?
So I think that visibility comes in a lot of different forms. I am obviously visible on YouTube and social media, but some people are visible like through their artwork or through their performances or, through smaller things that they do. And I think sometimes people associate visibility with volume.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you can turn the volume up on your visibility in a lot of different ways. Say someone's a painter. You feel invisible, you're painting away. Throw a piece at a gallery. Just say, would you hang this up? Like, go in there, like take that risk. If you don't like doing it in person, you don't like doing it on the phone, do it in an email. Send over the package with postage paid back. Listen, if you don't want to put it up, someone is going to honor that chutzpah. someone is going to say, wow, this is a piece of work that like we'd never seen before. Me, 7 novels written. I've never entertained publishing any of them. I'm going to self-publish, but
Mhm.
I've never sent that out there into the industry to
Right.
try and get them published, because at one point I felt invisible. I felt underrepresented, and too small. But sometimes you have to step out of that smallness to
Mhm.
realize how small the rest of the world is.
Right.
Um, you may like me calling some of these band directors, some of the most elite drum corps and marching bands in the country, and I'm getting on the phone with them. Like, I'm just going to pick up the phone. Like, sometimes you have to do that. And becoming visible, is there a little bit of uncomfortableness that goes with that? Yes, but we are uncomfortable in moments of birth. Change requires us to feel a little uncomfortable.
Yep.
When we lift weights, it tears the muscles, and then the next day they're sore. That's because they're changing, they're growing, they're being added to.
Right.
So we should embrace that. I think women seek that safety. They seek that I want to be comfortable. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. But if you don't ruffle the feathers, if you don't make yourself uncomfortable, if you don't make other people uncomfortable, you're not going to enact change.
Right.
And if you're comfortable where you are, sit back, relax, job well done. But
Mhm.
if you want to make things different, if you want to, shine that light on yourself, you've got to get a little bit more uncomfortable. You've got to let that discomfort, usher in change and something different. You have to do it.
Absolutely. What is something you wish women understood sooner in their life?
So, I referenced like the 19th century too much. So there was this idea in the Victorian era of the mad woman in the attic. And so like women, they would have like their cycles and they would get crazy and they would tuck them away in the attic, or, women that had ideas, like
Mhm.
they were going to show their ankle. Some of these women literally were tucked away in rooms in their houses and attics and things like that, because they were too much. And I think we as women are often afraid of being too much.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like, we're conscious of the too much coming from the outside. Like, we don't want people to think that we're too much, but on the inside we're like, I'm too fat, I'm too thin, I'm too short, I'm too brunette, we there's this push and pull of, we don't want to offend out here, but on the inside we magnify all of our deficiencies, and then we minimize all of our good things for the comfort of people outside of us. So I think finding boldness and bigness as an intentional action, I think is something that we need to understand. We don't have to always be polite. I mean, be well mannered. But sometimes my mom always says, nobody honks your horn unless you do. And
Right.
that rings in my head every time I put out a piece of marketing for myself. No one is going to market my business. Sure, I get referrals. Yeah, I do. Like, happy clients, they will always send you a happy new customer. But no one new is going to hear about me unless I'm shouting from the mountaintops. I'm really good at this. I am an expert at this. I am the best of the best. I have no problem with this. And I did that in my brokerage. Like, I've had former clients in law firms come back to me and they're like, nobody handled my account the way you do. Like, nobody could do it. And I'm like, I know, I'm great. I'm fantastic. Don't you miss me? And I think that boldness and bigness, is really great. And I think our ideas, our convictions are valid. And I talked a little bit about the trad wife trend. And there's a lot of pushback from certain components of the culture, because trad wifing, even for I think acutely for my age group, yeah, you're going to stay home and be a wife and mother? Are you kidding me? Had I been given that opportunity, had I been able to stay home and be the best housewife, best mother that I could have been, I would have been very, very happy.
Right.
You know, there was no intrinsic entrepreneurial spirit in me that needed to be, put on display.
Mm-hmm.
I would have done 150% job on that all day long.
Right.
I became entrepreneurial out of need. And I love that we do have these trad wives, like Ballerina Farm, that lovely woman. She's over there making everything from scratch, putting wholesome food in her kids' mouths, drinking raw milk, doing all this great stuff, starting a business, making a business with her husband. There are a lot of people that have a lot of things to say about that. And I think she's incredibly bold and incredibly courageous by doing that. Really embracing the Greg, what did you call it? The housely arts? What did you call it? The housely arts or the womanly arts or something?
What?
When you said like I was really good at like keeping a house.
No, it was the domestic arts.
The domestic arts. He said domestic arts.
Mm-hmm.
So I think being bold and Ballerina Farms, like she is being really bold about that trad wife life. And I think we all need to be a bit bolder about that. Like, if we're in our quietest moments, certain about what we're doing, we should be just as confident to the outside world. We absolutely should do that. And I think that is something women sometimes pat themselves on the back very quietly late at night when the lights are out and they're tucked in their bed, jump up and down and say, I'm really good at this. It's one of the reasons why I do the psychic scores on my channel, because, if I get something right and my viewership says, hey, you said this was going to happen and look, it happened. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Like, their comment is going to sit there, but I'm going to post it up. I'm going to be like, psychic score, I got it right. I graded my readings from 2025 because I got a lot of things right. An 80% success rate, which I think is good for a psychic. Like, I'll take the 20% fail rate. And some of those 20% were like, hey, it didn't shake out yet, and I used AI to do my grading, 3 different kinds of AI and then kind of compiled them all together. So, being courageous, being very transparent about the successes we have, the skill set we have, the value that we have, whether or not somebody else values it, I think is really, really important. And I really do wish that women would understand that better and more sooner.
Yes. What are you most proud of?
I am absolutely, sorry, I got an ice cube. I'm absolutely most proud of my family.
Mm-hmm.
I'm especially proud of Greg because I had always told him that he was a writer and he's an artist. He was a police officer, but he was the composite artist and he's an amazing artist. And I went, after we started dating, I said, you're a writer. There's a writer in there. Mm-hmm. And he was like, nah, there's not a writer in here. You're the writer. And I was like, no, you're a writer. And, he retired at the beginning of August. His first novel is finished.
Wow.
And it's not an easy process to write a novel, especially as a first-time writer, because short stories, beginning, middle, and end. A novel still has a beginning, middle, and end, but there's so much more nuance to your characters. There's so much more dynamic tension building that you have to do. and I am on my first read through of his first draft. I've read all of the chapters individually, but I'm on the first read through for the full draft, and it's an amazing story. It is amazingly creative, but
Mhm.
it's extremely cathartic for him because it is serving as part of a healing process from him losing his best friend in 2020.
Mhm.
So there's some elements of that. And he's actually crafted a whole universe. So it's not just this one book. He's going to have other books that come out of it. And those are kind of in the pipeline right now. And as soon as we launch this one and we're marketing it, he'll be writing the next one. So I think this is a whole new world for him
Mhm.
and a whole new process for him. Now, my kids, I'm obviously very, very proud of them. My daughter is extremely bright. She has a near genius IQ like Greg. And
Mhm.
socially, she does have some things that hold her back. And now that she's at university, she's got a ton of friends.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she didn't have a lot of friends in high school because they just, I think, were thinking below what she was thinking.
Mhm.
And she does have some interesting likes. Like she definitely is reincarnated from the entertainment industry in the 60s because
Okay.
she loves Tim Conway, Don Knotts. Like if you mention Don Knotts about her, she actually like blushes. She like has a crush on Don Knotts. Andy Griffith, like all of these like 1960s, like very wholesome kind of TV. She's
Mhm.
into. Harvey Korman is another one of hers. She's like killing me, like trying to get me to read Harvey Korman's son's book about his dad.
Oh.
But she has overcome a lot of different things. She had some hearing loss when she was younger. She's almost done with her undergrad. We're looking at Ivy League schools for her master's.
Mhm.
So over the summer, we're going to start start constructing some vintage couture and vintage costumes,
Oh,
which
neat.
I'm really looking forward to because she does want to go into costume design and wardrobe handling for entertainment. But she's an amazing actress. When I brought her back to school, we went up in the elevator to her dorm, and a girl and a guy and a gal got into the elevator, and the gal said to her, "Were you in the performance right before spring break?" And she was like, "I absolutely was." And she was like, "You were amazing." So I
Oh.
was like, "Oh my God, you got recognized!" Like, and she was like, "Mom, stop." My son is. I'm exceptionally proud of him right now because he has just been getting his teeth kicked in all senior year.
Yeah, you have.
Crashed his car right before school. There was a whole drama trying to get him a new car. Now he had another car accident yesterday. I mean, albeit a small one, he broke his ankle. He's not competing on the level he wanted. He made it into professional drum corps, but he didn't get released from his contract. So, he has been taking the hits. I don't want to say in stride. He's been wounded this year.
Mhm.
But I had a very, very adult, mature conversation with him yesterday about how he's going to manage himself for the remainder of senior year. And
Mhm.
he is really looking at like personal development. And I told him, I go, that is like the most adult thing you've ever said to me. And I'm really proud of you. And whatever I can do to get you from A to B, I'm here. I'm here for it. So, the changes that my family has gone through in the last few years, I think I'm very proud of that. And there's just more that's going to happen. There's more good stuff. There's always good stuff around the corner. There's always a gift wrapped somewhere in the corner that you're going to open up.
Right. Um, what has been, oh no, this is a really poignant question, I think, for most people. What do you hope people remember about you?
I want people to remember that I'm funny. Like I would love to say like, oh my God, she was the most amazing singer ever. She made me cry every time she sang. But I want people to remember that I'm funny. Like I want my funeral is going to be invite only, and everybody's dressing up. Wear hats. You have to wear hats. But I want people to be telling like the funny stories about me. I, like the highest compliment I could get is, she's the funniest person I know. Greg had an incident at work where like one of the guys pulled up in the vehicle and Greg was like cracking up on the phone with me. And he was like, all right, I'll talk to you later. And he hung up. And the two guys that were with him said, who are you laughing at? And he goes, oh, it's my wife. And she's really funny. And the two guys, they were younger and they were like, really? Your wife is funny? Like, I don't laugh like that with my wife. And Greg was like, yeah, she's like really funny. So, that's like a good thing. Like I want people to laugh. If we're not laughing, we're not living. We're not living right anyway, I should say.
Yes. We're at 2 hours here. Might skip a couple. Let's see. When do you feel the most like yourself?
This is so indulgent. When I'm in bed, freshly showered, but I'm still like, I've got good hair and like maybe a little bit of makeup on. And I'm reading a book or like just kind of chilling out in there with like soft lighting. Like that's where I want to be. I want to be in like when Mommy Dearest was such a bad reference, but I think Joan Crawford, it was a hit piece. That book was a hit piece. Like, in this beautiful bed and you're just like, oh, like that was one of the things that like Greg and I went back and forth on. Like he likes a rumpled, gross, like bed is very inviting to him. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, I want the pillows on it. I want clean sheets. I iron my sheets like a lunatic. And I just like that, like, I just want to like slip into like this, like really comfortable bed. Like that's when I most feel like myself, like I'm reading a book or I'm writing and I'm just like kind of sitting there, like just fancy and in pajamas and cozy and comfortable. That's when I most feel like myself.
What broke you and what rebuilt you?
So I had a ghosting by a guy that I dated. He was the only person I dated after I broke up with Angus's dad and before Greg and I started dating. And it was somebody, I had a crush on him in school. Mm-hmm. And when he found out that I was single, he was like, hey. And I was like, hey. And it was long distance. He lived down south. And I was like, I'm not ready for this. Like I got 2 kids and I'm rebuilding. I really can't do this. He was like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm going to be up, going to see my parents. Like, I just want to take you out. Mm-hmm. And he took me out. And, at the end of the day, it was like, hey, I really want to date you. Like we can make this happen. And I was like, I don't know about this. And it took him like a week to convince me, like, yeah, we could do this. And so I got kind of comfortable and we dated long distance for a little while and mm-hmm. For some time, it was like, I don't know, 9 months, something like that. And he ghosted me.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, well, this is weird. Not so sure about this, but, and I got okay with it. And I was like, okay, like all the kids are talking about it. I get it. Mm-hmm. And then it came back. And mm-hmm. was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry I did this. Like, and I was like, listen, you know what? Like I got babies and I gotta have a clear head for that.
Right.
And he sold me a whole new line of bullish and ghosted me again.
How dare he?
And it did break me. It did break me. I cried every day for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And just was like, and because of the dynamic, because he was there and then he ghosted me and then he came back and ghosted me again. I was like, well, is the phone going to ring any day now? Like, am I going to get an email? Like, am I going to get a text message? Like, I was so on edge and it was, it was bad enough. I was like, oh my God, I'm over 40. I've got 2 kids, 2 separate dads. Like, like I am such damaged goods. And I felt exponentially more damaged goods. Like after this guy did that, I was like, okay, so it's me. I'm old. I'm gross. I'm the crone. I'm in the crone zone. And I've got these kids, and like, how am I going to do this? Like, it just really was, it was really, really damaging, and like more damaging than I ever thought. Like, I thought that I really had my, I really felt like I had my hand on the throttle. And I was like, I could just dial this back. Like, I'm fine. Like, I've got my own thing. I've got my own
Right.
page, I've got my own life. I've got work. And it really was so, so damaging. And I had to not consider any relationships.
Right.
I was still fighting with Angus's dad. Like, that was the co-parenting was not going well. So it was just like, I was like, I am not dating anybody. And I am just going to have like really strong, supportive guys who are not interested in getting in my pants around me. It was a challenging period of time. And I was like, I am too old for this. Like, why is this affecting me? Like, I was getting mad at myself because I was just like, I'm too old for this. I intellectually, I know I'm feeling all of the wrong things and I should just dust myself off and get on with it. But I'm so old and no one will want me. I kept going back and forth. So, now I'm just like, I don't care. I am whole and complete,
Right.
I don't have to get that kind of confirmation from someone else. I can give myself a compliment. I can buy myself flowers. So yeah. And actually that was one thing I did. My girlfriend, Eva, she was single too. And she was like, and the song wasn't even out. She was like, I'm buying myself flowers this Friday, and I think you should too. It was her idea. So every Friday we worked together in insurance. We were buying ourselves flowers on the way home, and girl checking each other. Did you get yourself some flowers? What'd you buy yourself this week? And that was I think a really good practice, because it did make us both like kind of feel better, and like, we don't need anybody to do this. We could spend the $12 on ourselves. What's wrong with that?
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
I love that. I love that. Now, what did you survive that people don't know about?
All right. So I had an abusive boyfriend, and I'm sorry, in my 20s, mentally, physically, emotionally. Yeah.
Oh.
And it came about in like the strangest ways. Like, I had always dated, like just kind of like regular middle class people. Whereas, some of my peers were dating with intent. And I wasn't. I was like, oh, you're cute and fun. Let's, go on a date. Like, I didn't think strategically in my dating. And my parents said to me, like, you've got to date somebody with legacy. You've got to date somebody, who's in a place like we are,
Right.
You have to do that.
Right.
And so I said, okay, well, I'll do that. So I wound up dating someone who was in a very, very prominent family in our communities, the community that we lived in. And they were a little bit fun, they were a little bit of a wild family. And I was friends with the middle brother, or no, I'm sorry, the third youngest brother, not the middle. And the older brother had taken a shine to me. And Tiffany had dated the second oldest brother.
Oh, okay.
So once upon a time they dated. He's a lot of fun. He's a good guy. And so I didn't really know the older brother because he was a few years older than us. And I started dating him, and very quickly found out that not only had he never worked, he really had no intention of working. He had a little TF, a little trust fund. But like, he would crash his car and call up grandma, and grandma would buy a new car. He was horrible to me when he was at his worst. When he was at his best, he was actually a pretty nice guy. But he had how we wound up breaking up was I was still at university, and one of my friends overheard a girl talking on the payphone with her boyfriend. and something clicked and something sounded very similar. And so she grabbed this this very tall, statuesque redhead and said, "Can I ask you a question?" And asked her a few questions and figured out, it's like just, the weirdness of synchronicities.
Mhm.
Figured out that she was dating the same guy I was.
Oh.
And so she arranged a meeting, and I sat down with this young lady, and she was a model. She was very pretty.
Mhm.
And I found out that he had given me, he presented me with 2 rings from his grandmother with engagement stones. And he
Oh.
said, "Pick one and I'm going to have it reset for you." And so I had picked one, and I found out that he gave the girl the other one,
My
and she was
goodness.
wearing it.
What a
And
jerk.
yeah, so I called his grandmother, who fully expected me to be like the new granddaughter-in-law.
Right.
And I said, "I'm standing here with the girl who has your other ring." And I go, "So-and-so has been dating her too." And the grandmother really tried to triangulate me and was like, "No, she's lying. She must have stolen it, blah, 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 blah."
Mhm.
But we compared, I was flying in to go see him, and he was putting her on a plane. Like, he wasn't even taking 2 trips to the airport. And treating me badly all along the way, on a regular basis. So that relationship ended with restraining orders, and he had actually, after I'd broken up with him, he broke into my parents' house during the day.
Mhm.
The door was unlocked. I shouldn't say he broke in. He just walked in
Right.
and strangled me in my bathroom. Yeah, broke open my door and strangled me almost to unconscious.
Oh, no.
And then ran out. One of the staff at my parents' house heard the commotion and came up and probably saved my life.
Wow.
But that was a complex situation because we had so many friends in common. We were from the same community. Everyone was like, "Why did she call the police on him?" Because I did have him served with the restraining order. That was quite a drama, and I
Mhm.
did not have the support from my group of friends. Like, Tiffany was very supportive. She was just like, she would like laugh at him. She was like, "You are an idiot."
Mhm.
But my parents were like, "Well, you brought him into you started dating him, it's you picked him." And I was like, "Well, you guys told me to. You told me to date somebody who had money, like,
Right.
I was like, I'll never date anybody that has money again." So yeah, that was pretty tough. And that was, my whole epilepsy situation, I kind of feel like I walked through that by myself. This was another one that I really walked through by myself. And I had to be like, no means no.
Right.
And it was, a lot of people don't know that about me. A lot of people are very surprised when I tell them that I was in, a very traumatic relationship like that. And,
Mhm.
because I do seem so spicy, and I do seem like I would never take any crap from somebody like that. But, those kinds of relationships build. They don't show up on the first date.
Right.
They chip away at your level of expectation. They chip away at the behaviors that you'll expect and accept.
Right.
So that is something. But I have such an eagle eye for it now, like with my
Mhm.
daughter and with my son. Like, I'm very, very keen on some of those trigger points and red flags, if you will. So
Mhm.
I'm very keen on pink flags. So, if you're going to throw a pink flag up, I'm going to see it too. So, yeah.
Now, the next question was, when did you stop caring what people thought? And you said you still care, and I get that. I do too.
Yeah.
I didn't know how much until I hit the YouTube community, but wow. But when did you stop caring what people thought in a more minor way? Like if you said no, there's a time where we say yes, yes, yes to everyone. Can you do this? Can you do that? At what age approximately did you feel it was okay to say no?
Um, I think in my 50s I've gotten, I think 40s I was like really practicing.
Right.
But in my 50s, and it gets easy when you have kids, you know, like you
Mm-hmm.
start to say no a lot when you have kids. But the concept of no as a complete sentence, I love that. I love that. And I do think an exercise for anybody who has trouble saying no. And I bring in a little bit of Chris Voss here. If they say no, you know, you say no, like, you know, you ask me, hey, you know, do you want to do blah, blah, blah? And I say, no, thank you. Not
Right.
that. If they say, well, why not? Use the mirroring techniques. And you go, well, why not? Like, you don't understand, like, and have them explain more.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that I'm obligated to do this? Like, why do
Right.
you think that this is something that is beneficial for me, that I should
Mm-hmm.
invest myself in? You know, yeah, our friend Frank goes, no, and puts up this giant, you know, hand. But we made a meme of him. It's pretty funny. But yeah, I think that is something that I am still practicing.
Mm-hmm.
When I say no, and people go, oh, come on, you can't, you like, yeah, my girlfriend Kathy does that. Like, she goes out and like has cocktails all over the place, and she goes down the shore, and it's like, you know, it's 40 minutes away, and she's like, come on, come with me. I'm like, no. And she's like, oh, come on, don't make me go by myself. And no, like, you know, don't make you go by yourself. You're meeting people down there. Like, why do I have to go in the car with you? So I think, you know, I do care what people think about me, but
Right.
at the end of the day, you know, I have to stick to my script. I have to stick to what I need to do.
Right.
So you know, that the power of the no. I mean, I still care what people think, but I care what I have to get done more. You know,
Right.
I'm a busy woman. I got a lot of
Yeah.
stuff to do.
Now, this is our last question, everyone. I know it's been, I appreciate everybody sticking with us. What is your greatest, or what was, or is your greatest act of courage, Anna?
I think really, you know, in history that I can remember, leaving my corporate job, because that was a really questionable act. A lot of people questioned me doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I worked for one of the largest brokerages in the United States. I was one of their top uh, retention specialists.
Right.
You know, people were like, how are you leaving this job? Like, how are you walking away from this? And it wasn't I mean, they told me, like, if you ever want to come back, just let us know. We'll plug you right back in. But do you do that? Like, is there any growth when you do that? Like, once you're done with this, a situation, a circumstance, I think, if you've extracted all you can from it, I think you kind of have to move on, or you run the risk of you know, becoming stagnant and decrepit, you know. So I think leaving that for being my own boss, being my own HR director, my own payroll person, still being a mom, still being a wife, still being, you know, a pet owner, you know, you know, I think that was a huge move on my part, because I really did it with no net. I still have no net. And
Mm-hmm.
I find that the no net is motivating.
Yeah.
Other people may not find that motivating. The
Right.
fear of starvation is a
Mm-hmm.
motivating factor. You know, some people may find that, you know, really anxiety inducing. And you know, my family has a lot of anxiety, and just idiopathic anxiety, and we're wound a little tight, and both of my kids do. And I would tell them all the time, like, they would have class trips and they would get anxious, and I'd be like, don't confuse excitement with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can transmute the energy of anxiety, urgency, into agency and creation. I think we can do that. In magic, they talk about transmuting energy all the time. And that's just taking a bad situation and turning it into something good. I did it recently. Everyone knows I had that crash video not long ago. And what I did was I took that crash video and I applied all of the things that I've learned about astrology in 2026. I'm comprehensively studying astrology in 2026. And I took all of that and I used that for content. And I said, this is why I was susceptible to having a freak out of that magnitude. This is why, I felt the way that I felt that day. This is why the planets aligned and allowed me to have such a loud voice on that day. And we can transmute energy all the time. And I think that, when, we can only be courageous. And this is something my husband says, the only time that we can be courageous is when we're scared. Courage does not come out of comfort. Courage comes out of crisis and calamity. Police officers, they don't go to work and they're, bold and brash and they're bulletproof vest every single day. They have to be vigilant and smart and aware, when they put the uniform on and they go to work. But it is only in that moment of crisis that they have the opportunity to be courageous. So, my greatest acts of courage, giving up that security blanket of corporate paycheck, corporate 401k, and, all the goodies that come with that,
Right.
Am I glad that I did it? Yes, absolutely. I had blossomed as much as they were going to allow me to. I needed to repot my plant into another larger planter. And I think that this is just the beginning. There are more things that are going to come. I don't want to say I'm rebranding, but I'm constantly fine-tuning my brand and fine-tuning what I do. When my channel first started, I was very snarky in my readings and I was very dismissive of celebrities and pop culture figures
Right.
going through crisis. And that changed after a while because I did see that there's so many other readers that are out there. Meghan Markle's a narcissist. Harry's an idiot. That's an easy throwaway. What's not so easy is to show them a pathway out of their folly.
Right.
And so that's where I've kind of developed into, I'm publicly a lot more helpful to people that maybe the public doesn't think deserve help or maybe kind of fumbled their good fortune.
Right.
I'm a little bit more generous with them. But it's all in demonstration of like what I do for people privately. So many people, they misunderstand what I do. Like they think I'm like telling the future and I'm not. I'm guiding a future. I'm showing what is possible with the climate of astrology, the weather of numerology, and the, directive of what to wear and how to conduct yourself in that environment through my psychic ability.
Right.
I think that is a much better framing. And, people say to me all the time, oh, you're not making any predictions. No, I'm not making any predictions. But when I do predict stuff, it comes true 80% of the time. So,
Right.
We can go back and forth all day long about that. I'm not Nostradamus,
Right.
Nostradamus didn't get everything right. So,
No.
I think it's, I think that being a psychic, like that's a courageous endeavor in and of itself. Cause a lot of people don't believe in what I do. But a lot of people, I have converted a lot of people, including my husband.
Aussie Queen has a question. When did you meet Greg?
So Aussie Queen, we are actually an arranged marriage.
Ooh.
Our moms, our sisters met in kindergarten, our older sisters, and our moms became friends in 1974. or 1974, because I remember Greg's a little bit younger than me, and I remember his mom being pregnant with him. So our families are friends from way back. My original dad was friends with Greg's father. And then when my original set of parents split up, my mom maintained friendship with Greg's mom, Yuriko. And then when I moved back from California, I had a high school reunion that was coming up, and they moved our reunion stuff onto Facebook. I reluctantly went on Facebook because, again, I thought it was for kids. Ran into Greg and the people that we became friends again. And when I split up with Angus's dad, and I got my condo, Greg was the first person to be in the condo. He was the first friend I had over, and I had no qualms about it because I knew him his whole life, like I was like, oh, come over. So Greg was actually Uncle Greg to my kids, like the whole time that I was living in that condo. So like when we started dating and Uncle Greg became like stepfather Greg, like, it was an easy transition for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
So Greg and I, we joke around and say we're an arranged marriage, but his friend Billy actually officiated our wedding and did the nicest service about like how this is two families that are getting married, and this was a long time coming. It's really, really cool. So, I'm very, very, very fortunate. I adore all of my in-laws. My brother-in-law is kind of a pain in the butt. My brother-in-law, Joe, bullied me in second grade. He stuffed me in a garbage can in second grade, and I never let him forget it. So, but it definitely is, two families that came together. My father-in-law is amazing. He's so fun. He's really a good guy.
That's wonderful. Well, I want to thank you for coming today. You've taken, 2.5 hours of your valuable time.
I'm sorry that but I can talk forever.
No. I've learned so much from you, and I feel like I know you even better, and I'm just tickled. Can we drop Annabelle's link one more time? It's Fortune Cookies Tarot LLC. If you're listening or watching on replay, I hope you'll consider subscribing to her. It's a really wonderful channel. And I just wanted to say that I'm going to be back actually tomorrow night at 7 Eastern Time, 11 p.m. in England. And we're going to talk about if you had this object, or if you use this object, you're probably gray now. So it's just going to be a little fun time, not long, just maybe about an hour of fellowship. And I hope you'll come. And don't forget Lady Fanny's live on Friday. So Annabelle, thank you so much. I really, really appreciated it.
Cindy, thank you. I'm really honored that you asked me to come up, because like, I'm just like, I'm just some weirdo here on the
internet. No, you're not. You're very, very special.
But I have like a ridiculous amount of experience, and I talk about it on my channel sometimes. But it's always like a side quest to like a reading that I'm doing, or some celebrity that I'm talking about. So like, letting people know a little bit more about me, and find out some nuances about me that maybe understand a little bit more about why I'm like kind of twitchy.
Well, I'm glad that we're friends, and I look forward to many more years of friendship. And guys, thank you to my mods. You're all wonderful. Thank you to everyone who came. Thank you to anyone watching on replay. I'm so grateful. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.